All right. Earlier in 2019, in May, when they come out with new laws, uh, Utah came out with expanded disability listing, or not disability, discrimination listing, and it was a long list of those who cannot be discriminated against. And of course, Utah, being an alt-right Republican state, had to put in security discrimination, and so cops are now protected, for example, among that list. But now you're seeing how Utah is completely redesigning the whole government in complete violation of the Constitution. A new bill would make Veterans Court available to an entire state. This is from ABC4 News Utah last night, 12 hours ago, 19 views. They don't get views, but I give them credit for at least posting their shows, the news segments, sort of. There are times where you have 2020 Utah Boat Show at Hobbitville, a curious place. And then you get advertisements in here. I'm not seeing one immediately on the screen, but Plexiderm has been a popular one. And they even have the vibrator for ED. And they don't call it a vibrator. They give it some fancy name. It increases blood flow. It's a vibrator. Oh my God. And people fall for these gimmicks. But anyway, we're talking about how the government of Utah is restructuring the whole government of Utah. There's supposed to be a court as outlined in the Constitution. People who have grievances can petition the courts for a redress of grievances. And you're supposed to be provided with the state prosecutor for your presentation of your grievances. You get representation. It's in the First Amendment. That's why it's the state versus, is because somebody in the state went to the cops, said, hey, I've been victimized. The state then takes over on behalf of that person. And so the person who's being accused gets defense counsel in the other amendment. And it's not a person battle versus person, but then America created civil case separate from criminal cases. And instead, civil cases, as you're familiar with my lawsuit against the LDS Church, I can't send the church to prison. I can only financially punish them. And so that was one of the major changes that took place in America as a whole. But then we get to Utah. And other states are doing it too, but in Utah especially, they're wanting to do it. They're taking the burden away from the constitutional required courts and creating other courts for druggies, drug court, people who are mentally ill, so the mental court, literally mental court. But then now they're wanting to have a veterans court. And if you're not familiar with the discrimination additions, they're going to have all these other things, all these other courts. We already have a traffic court, don't we? Where if you get a ticket and you want to dispute it, you then become the prosecution because you're complaining about being victimized by the cop. The cop is the one who is the prosecutor. He's making the accusation. You violated the traffic laws. Therefore, you must be financially punished. But if you want to dispute it, you then change roles with the cop, and thus the cop gets the free attorney. And they have a retainer lawyer for the cops, so that he represents all cops. And that's how the system is rigged. But now they want to do a veterans court. Now, these courts are different than traffic court and civil lawsuits. These courts are not actual courts. You don't have a trial in these courts. Your right to a trial is gone. Because what it is you, who are the accused, plead guilty in order to go to these courts. And what these courts are sentencing courts. The judge is sentencing you to your punishment. You've waived your right to a trial, which you're not allowed to waive your right to a trial, but everybody has now accepted it. And you go to the sentencing. They think that they're doing a favor for us, because obviously we're criminals in need of help. If we're a veteran, if we're a druggie, if we're mentally ill. And the mentally ill gets my goat, because true mentally ill people aren't capable of representing themselves. And so if they can't represent themselves, how are they then able to make a plea? Especially one where they say, I did it. The whole thing is messed up on that one. But that's what is happening here. Veterans Court is saying, okay, you served our country, you went and blew away your family members or your neighbors, and so we're going to have you sentenced in this court to get you the help you need. And so that's the whole redesigned structure of Utah. It's a con game to force everybody to admit guilt and be punished without a trial. And so don't be surprised if we start seeing other things pop up. The police have their court. It's called Internal Affairs. And so all these different courts, human resources for businesses. That's the whole purpose of creating a human resource department, is that when there's a complaint within the business handles it. We don't want you going to the courts and suing the company and getting damages from the company. We'll handle it in-house through human resources. And then, this is where we're headed. And it's a downward slide on the Candyland game. Which people don't give that enough credit. That's a fun game, actually. Yes, it's designed for kids, but it's fun. So, that's my beef on the new government that's emerging in the state of Utah. And I've already done the video about how Utah wants to exterminate the poor. The whole homeless crisis here in Utah, perfect illustration. They had 1,100 beds, which was not enough. And so they send in Operation Rio Grande, scattering the homeless. And then people complained, and so they said, okay, well, we'll make 3 shelters. Ooh, 3, that's more than 1, isn't it? Total number of beds now, 700. And then there's that other shelter that opened up, 40 to 50 beds. So 750 beds from 1,100. Do they not do math here in Utah? Are people that dumb in Utah? And so, of course, when they protest here in Utah, because there are people who are smart in Utah, who know what the government's doing, and they protest to defend the rights of the homeless, well, that's a crime in Utah. You can't protest. Your First Amendment does not apply here. And they get arrested. And they have to plead guilty in order to get out of jail. Otherwise, their lives get ruined. Because hell no, you're not going to trial.